Oh, hi. My name's Nathan. Have you ever wondered about bread? Because I'm here to show you how to make it. So anyways, most bread recipes are fairly similar. We've got flour, water, salt, yeast. Really, that's all you need to make good bread. The other things are ancillary and define what type of bread you want to make. Let's talk about those things real briefly. We'll nerd out just a bit. So, the big thing about this is you need either time or effort and heat. So, for this recipe in particular, we're going to go with time. This is a no-knead recipe, so you'll be able to just mix this up in about 5 minutes time, set it aside, wait 12 hours, come back, and you can make bread. It's that simple. You don't have to knead it. You don't have to have a stand mixer, anything like that, right? That time also develops a very, very important flavor. It's almost like a fermented flavor. If you're a beer drinker or if you like fresh bread, you'll understand that sort of flavor as well. But that's really important to most bread recipes. It's time to develop flavor. That's the other important thing. Now, heat. For this to be that nice crackly sort of crust that we want on a baguette that everybody strives for, we need it to be hot and we need it to be steamy. Yeah. Oh yeah. So hot and steamy bread is really what all the commercial ovens and bakeries use. That gives you that craggly, blistery crust and that big oven spring on bread. That's really what we're going to try to mimic here, and it's not as hard as everybody would have you think. So I'm going to show you it, but for now, let's get down to the actual ingredients. 500 grams, or 3 cups and 2 tablespoons of, this is bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour. It's fine. I've got a cup and a half of water, which is about 350 grams. I've got 2 teaspoons of salt, and I've got a half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. You do not need a lot of yeast for this. This is going to take its time. It's going to enjoy all this wonderful flour we're going to give it. It's going to develop a lot of flavor, a lot of gluten, and it's going to be really, really chewy and delicious. So, with that, let's get to combining these. We have our flour here. This is bread flour. You don't have to use it, but I do suggest using a bread flour that you trust or an all-purpose flour that you trust, a brand that you like. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flour right here, and I'm going to take my yeast, and I'm going to sprinkle it over top. I know this yeast is good, so don't at me in the comments about having to prove this. I know what I'm doing. But if you are unsure about your yeast, go ahead and add it to the water first. Mix it in, give it some time. You can check out our first video on the French bread recipe, and that will show you how to proof your yeast. For us, we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and mix the yeast in the flour, just to get a little bit incorporated to start. We're going to add our salt. And this is just kosher salt. If you got sea salt, that would probably be a little bit better, works in a little bit better, but honestly, I like it. So we've got our flour, our yeast, our salt. Now all that's left is to add our water. This is all most bread recipes are. Sure, you can make other types. You can make enriched bread, which usually is the addition of eggs or milk or butter, some sort of fat, and that's fine. This is one of my favorites because it's a more, I don't want to say pure sense of bread, but it's an original recipe. It's what people have been doing for a long time with bread, except they didn't even add yeast. And this is a good recipe because you really don't have to work too hard. If you've only got 10, 15 minutes at night one night and you want bread the next day, just slap it together in this bowl here. You can kind of see it's pretty shaggy. But that's all we need to do. Just barely bring it together here. And when it reaches this stage right here, pretty shaggy. It looks a little dry, a little rough. That's okay. We're just going to cover this up with our patented shower cap. And we're going to let this rest for, I would say, a minimum of 10 hours to maximum of 20, but ideally 12 hours. If you have to let it go past 12, just throw it in the fridge. That will slow the actual fermentation process down, and the activity of the yeast will slow down quite a bit. So you can let this rest. It will slowly bubble up, and I'll see you in 12 hours. And it's been 12 hours. I literally haven't moved. I need to eat and sleep. This is what our dough looks like. It's nice, porous, it's bubbly as all get out, and that's really what we want. That flavor has been developing for hours, and so has the gluten, so we don't have to work this. All we're gonna do is take a little bit of flour, and I mean a little. We're gonna try to keep this as minimally floured as possible because this is a high hydration dough. It's about 70% if you follow my recipe. That's pretty sticky dough. But it needs to be that. That's what gives you that kind of chewy crumb on the inside. And we don't want to beat it to death either. We want a lot of those air pockets to stay in there. So we're going to take a little bit of flour, just enough to lightly dust the surface here. We're going to dump all this out. Look at that. We're not going to aggressively knock out all the air bubbles like you would for many twice rising breads. We're just going to lightly work with this and see how sticky this is. It's a very sticky dough, but that's okay. Again, we're going to just lightly dust this. Just enough for us to work with it here. Okay. So get it into a rough rectangle here. Measure this out if you wanted to. I've done that in the past, but it's really not horribly important unless you're showing off for a bunch of people. We're just going to cut this into 3 sections here, kind of eyeball your sizes. We'll take these 2, set them aside. We're going to take this guy right here, lightly flour it. We're just going to push it out just a little. We just want to get it into a light rectangular shape. Does not have to be accurate. Kind of the same shape. So something like this. Again, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. That's okay. So all we're going to do, we're going to take this top, fold it down, lightly press it in. It should stick pretty easily. And then we're going to fold this side into the middle, push it in, and then I like to fold it over the top. We're going to push those seams together. And you can see there's still bubbles, all this on the top here. That's important. We want that to stay there. We don't want to lose just all of our air that we've waited hours for. We're just going to roll this out. Don't take much pressure, just lightly do it. Pinch these ends down here because that's the traditional baguette shape. And this is one baguette formed already. Super easy. Yeah, it looks ugly right now, but as it rises and then goes into the oven, it's going to look great, I promise. Okay, so we've got them all shaped. Like I said, about 3. As they puff up, they'll shrink in a little bit. This is kind of what we're going for right here. They don't have to look pretty. They'll puff up, they'll bake, they'll be great. On the note of baking, we're going to let this rest for about 30-40 minutes. While that's doing that, we need to go ahead and preheat our oven to as high as it'll go. About 550 for my oven. It's going to be hot. That's good. We're also going to put a big, whatever oven-safe container of boiling water, hot water in the exact floor of your oven. All right, while this is all preheating, because steam is the next very important part of this. As the steam gets going, it will all collect and rest on top of the bread. It'll help the oven spring so the crust of the bread doesn't harden before the yeast gets a chance to expand. That will also help grow the loaves a little bit fatter because they look real skinny right now, but they won't be. And it gives you that nice craggly crust because that steam sits on top of it and it almost gelatinizes these proteins on top of the bread and gives you, as it dries out eventually, a nice blistery, crackly, you'll see crust. The steam gets going and then we'll put it in for about 15 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes now. Our oven's preheated. These have been resting and rising. And so I've covered them just loosely here. If you're worried about them sticking, you might flour this, or you can put oil on it. Now, I've got a spray bottle here, and this is kind of important. I usually have these for when my cats are awful. But they double for really good bread making. So What I'm going to do real quick is just mist these down. Again, we're trying to get that kind of like commercial bakery feel where they have steam injected ovens, but we don't at home. Or if you do, good lord, can I be your friend? Because that would be great. All right, now that we've misted these down, I've got a bread lamb here. We're just going to score this. If you do not have one of these, you can, first off, refer to our first video where we do a few other methods. But you can also just use a really sharp knife as well. We're basically making these slits so that as oven springs, these don't rupture at random intervals. We want to control where these rise. And do a couple quick slashes. Cut nice and deep. We've got our slashes in here. We went ahead and spritzed it down again with water. And what we're going to do is put this in the oven. Again, the oven has been preheating for about 45 minutes. It's plenty hot. We have a tray of water in the bottom. The rack is set second to top. And we're going to slide this in. And every 5 minutes, we're going to take it out and spray inside the oven. Rotate this around at 10 minutes. Set it back in, 5 minutes, spray it down. That's going to give us that kind of steam quality of a commercial bakery that we can get as close as we can here without going overboard. I just pulled these out of the oven. As you can tell, they are very well cooked. The downside to my awful oven is it heats unevenly. So these sides got a little bit overdone, but that's just fine. But these suckers are crispy, crispy. That's exactly what you want. So we're going to let this cool down at least a little while. I mean, we might still cut it to it while it's hot. That's a no-no, but I'm going to do it anyways. So these are our baguettes. Nice, cooled down, beautiful, crunchy. Oh man, so good. And it smells amazing in here. Super easy recipe, just a little bit of technique to it. Not very hard at all. A little bit of time, you got plenty of time. Don't even worry about it. Just go ahead and start it, and then you'll be forced to do it. It'll be worth it, I promise. And next episode, we're going to do something a little special with this, especially for the cold weather that we've got coming up. And, once more, it was viewer submitted. It was a request from you all. So, of course, I had to jump right on it. Actually, I have a few of those that I am getting to in the cold weather. So, thank you all for suggesting all of these comments and requests. It's been really nice, and I appreciate it. Continue to do so we have things to film. It's really nice that you help us out on ideas. Listen, I'd like to thank all you guys for watching this video, coming along, giving this recipe a try. Obviously, I appreciate your support more than anything. Thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank especially my subscribers. Thank you so much for participating in our channel and our community. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting and suggesting and liking this video as it helps us grow our channels. Thank you so much. Until next time, go do a thing.